Thank you. Well, what I want to do is take the conversation from the very local that we've just heard to the completely global, and to try and give you some of the thinking that we've been doing recently on global populations and why this local story and neighbourhood stories are so important. And I suppose this is going to be something very obvious to this audience. Unfortunately, when I say that property is about people, to some of the people that I work with, that it comes as a bit of a shock. The emphasis on what people are doing inside of buildings, and actually also what changes in population are doing to buildings themselves. So I'm going to talk a lot about boomers and millennials. This is the world population. It's been growing, but it's now growing at a slower rate than previously. But overall, the world is young. There are a lot of millennials, but there are really key differences between older generations, the kind of post-war boomer generation. If you wonder which category you fit into, just see which of these two you identify with. There are some changes that have been brought about by the aging of boomers and the arrival of the millennials and the digital revolution that goes with the millennials, which I'm going to be talking about. So the first thing is that these guys have been saving for 6 decades. They are now pensioners. That has changed world money. Money is different because instead of institutions having to deploy large amounts of capital that they're all saving for capital growth, they're now actually having to pay the pensions. That makes a big difference to the demand for fixed income. And bond rates have gone down, interest rates have gone down globally, not just because of central bankers, but because of the demand for income from these guys. Asset prices are up. That is a major factor, a global factor that I come across in every city I look at, the unaffordability of real estate. If interest rates go up, asset prices might go down, unless rents rise as well. But the big question is, well, how high will they go and where to next? And I've looked back a long way in order to try and give you an answer to this. This is Jane Austen. Why on earth have I put a picture up of an early 19th century English novelist? Well, she's a really good economist. She left us lots of information about how much all her characters were worth and how much they were earning. And the reason I mention her is because I think we're going back to a time like this. So whether you're a boomer and recognise the top picture, or Gen Z and recognise Pride, Prejudice and Zombies there, the point about Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley is that whatever they were invested in, they were earning 4%. And we're seeing this happening globally. No matter what type of property, it's 4%. So in the past, everybody used to invest for capital growth, big grids, big buildings, single assets. Now it's a quality, long-term quality of income stream that matters. And I'm arguing that that makes for a different built environment. The world that you're all working in is governed by money. Have you ever noticed that planning use classes are actually investment use classes? And so this example happens to be from Dubai, but all over the world we've been building these big buildings for the big capital growth, for the now pensioners. And what everything's moving towards, what real estate investment is moving towards, is management of quarters and neighbourhoods for income streams. And so on the one hand, we've got the digital dinosaurs taking all the money and needing an income. On the other hand, we've got a workforce, the digital natives. And these guys at a global level are really important because although they're numerous globally, in fact, there'll be 75% of the workforce by 2025, their skills are quite rare in particular jurisdictions. So the millennials are important to us because they know about the future, they can deal with the future, but in Western countries, they are a scarce commodity. Workforces are shrinking. Most extreme example here is Japan, that's lost over 12% of its workforce since 1992, just because the population's aging. So in these developed countries, you have a particular emphasis on a generation who are now globally footloose, highly skilled, and they want to work in cities. This is a very radical survey of what workers want. It's not an out-of-town business park, so it's not those big single-use buildings that we've been plonking down on the edge of town for a few decades now. We actually have to think about the city and what kind of place and city and neighbourhood they're going to be living in. And across the world, we find the creative industries, the tech industries that are succeeding in cities, in particularly good urban neighbourhoods in cities. And there is a particular type of urbanism that we find everywhere that is attracting. The city is now a primary attractor of a global sort of human capital. And Silicon Valley has moved to San Francisco. Every day, Google have to bus all their talent out of the city that people want to live, work, play, and visit. And they have to put them into something that they're trying to make look like a city on their campus, with all the cafes and culture that goes with it. So suddenly, cities are important. And it's led us to think that we're entering a new age of city. The first age was the agrarian city, everybody getting together in cities like this to do what human beings have to do, meet face to face and be amongst each other. But we've been through a period of change, industrial revolution and later sort of working revolutions. That means that proximity to raw materials in the industrial age or proximity to markets in the mercantile age, and lately the concentration of financial capital has been what's driven a city. Our argument is that in the fifth age, and the age we're moving into now, people are being pushed out of those concentrations of capital. It's much more about attracting human capital. The city's becoming polycentric. It's much more about neighbourhoods and a dispersal of people, in fact, to cities that start to look much more like the first stage again, when it's human interaction that really matters. So there you are, that's an absolute canter through our global picture, and you start to see how it impacts on local.